Every town has a dark side.
The U.S. Navy has finally acknowledged that videos appearing to show UFOs flying through the air are real.
This morning, U.S. intelligence agencies confirm hundreds of additional UAP sightings have been reported. UAP stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, otherwise known as UFOs.
Tonight, new never-before-seen video off the coast of Yemen showing a U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drone tracking a glowing orb as it flies over the water.
For the first time, 130,000 pages of UFO records posted online, those sightings in the sky.
Often when you think UFOs, you think sci-fi and spaceships. These insiders say because of that stigma, this topic is hard to talk about. But now they're speaking out, saying there are...
The truth isn't hidden out in the desert behind restricted area signs. No, it's been hiding in plain sight, inside the UFO stories we've all heard, and that was the plan all along. For 80 years, strange lights have been seen in the skies above us. And people pointed up, snapped photos, took videos, and pilots filed reports. And every single time it happened, we thought we were getting closer to the truth, but it was always just out of reach. Now, how can that be? Well, we told ourselves the government knew and was keeping it from the public. Except the public was a part of it from the start. All those legends, flying saucers, aliens, UAPs, weren't simply hidden by the Pentagon. In more cases than you think, the Pentagon helped start them. Hey guys, it's Andrew, and welcome to Everytown. If you're into UFOs like I am, you're going to find this one fascinating and probably a bit frustrating, because it looks like we, the people, didn't create these alien stories in the way we think. Now, they've been fed to us, and we swallowed them hook, line, and sinker. So buckle up. This is UFOs, how the Pentagon created America's greatest conspiracy. So if you're interested in UFOs, aliens, and the whole subject, well, this episode is going to show you something you've likely never even thought about. Because this is the true story about how the Pentagon turned America's hunger for the unknown into one of the most successful disinformation campaigns in modern history. And I'm not pulling this from some random blog or a documentary made in somebody's basement. Now, the evidence comes straight from the Pentagon, and they admitted it and put it in writing and released it to Congress. So essentially, this starts a few years ago, back in 2022, when something happened that almost never does in Washington. Congress actually agreed on something. And they created an office, a real funded operational office, to finally figure out what the hell has been going on with UFO sightings for the past 80 years. And they call it the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO for short. And their mission is clear. Investigate unidentified aerial phenomena, figure out if they're a threat, and finally give people some actual answers about what's been seen in American skies since the 1940s. Now, to run this thing, they tapped Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, a physicist with nearly 3 decades inside the Defense Department and the intelligence community. In other words, a man who had the clearance, the connections, and the curiosity to open every locked file cabinet in the building. AARO was given unprecedented access, authorization to dig through classified military records dating back to 1945. Every secret program, every unexplained sighting, every rumor whispered through the ranks for generations. So, no stone left unturned. But what Kirkpatrick and his team found wasn't what Congress or anyone else really expected. In June of 2025, the Wall Street Journal broke the story, and just like that, the conversation shifted forever. The military had been lying, yes, but not about aliens. They'd been lying about themselves, about their own technology, and they'd used UFO myths as the perfect cover.
We have a government that is actively blocking information from us.
According to the 2024 Pentagon report from AARO, multiple UFO legends were deliberately manufactured by the U.S. military. Disinformation planted to mislead both the American public and foreign intelligence agencies about top-secret weapons programs. They faked evidence in towns near test sites, invented stories from scratch, and built entire myths, and then just sat back as those tales spread across America. It wasn't hard, and people have been hungry for answers and love to expose secrets, so they needed only to plant a seed. Dulce Base, which you may remember was the secret facility where the alien treaty lore began in the 1980s. I've covered this story on this channel before, and basically, it's supposedly a place where aliens and humans work side by side. Now, these claims first came from a businessman named Paul Benowitz, who became convinced he was intercepting top-secret communications from there. And he was, but he was being fed those on purpose. The story spread around, but ultimately it was a cover-up for actual Cold War missile silos being built. And there's another story from the 80s about an Air Force colonel walking into a Nevada bar with photos of a flying saucer. And this too really happened. But years later, that same colonel admitted to investigators he'd been following orders. His mission was to keep prying eyes away from something that was real, but buried under the highest levels of classification, the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter. And that bar owner, well, he probably showed those photos to every single regular who walked in, maybe even made copies or sold a few. Now, those images could be anywhere now, passed around as proof in UFO circles, shared on message boards, and dropped into documentaries. But the truth behind them was never extraterrestrial. It was bureaucratic. Lies built to protect missiles and a plane. And there's a lot of other stories just like these. To understand why the military needed elaborate cover stories in the 80s, you gotta wrap your head around what they were actually testing out there. Now, the F-117 Nighthawk, it didn't look like an airplane at all. It looked like someone folded a paper jet out of sheet metal, made it a triangular shape rather than a tube with wings, and gave it an engine that could make it go almost 700 miles per hour. The first flight? Area 51, June of 1981. By 83, it's combat ready, but the public won't hear a word about it for another 5 years. That's 5 years of night runs and training hops. 5 years of perfecting something no one had ever seen before. But most importantly to note is that the Nighthawk wasn't built for speed or dogfights. It was built to be a ghost, which only deepened the mystery for anyone who might have seen it before they knew it existed. Those razor edges and flat facets, not a design flex. Every angle was math, shaping radar energy so it bounced anywhere but back to the dish. The skin on this thing was layered with materials that soaked up radar. The weapons were carried inside the fuselage, so nothing stuck out on a scope. And the mission it would conduct would be to slip into defended airspace, drop precision bombs, and then just disappear. In the Cold War, with Soviet air defenses tightening every year, this was something that needed to stay hidden. Now, all these tests towards perfecting the craft happened under lockdown at Area 51, so flights after dark need to know only type of stuff. And from 81 to 1990, giant C-5 Galaxy transports ferried Nighthawk airframes from Burbank to Nevada, also always at night. So, Area 51, under the cover of darkness, you had crafts that to the naked eye looked insane. Locals started seeing shapes that didn't move like planes, angular silhouettes, a low humming sound, flight profiles that looked wrong. And they were right. By public standards, it was impossible. The F-117 was a decade ahead of anything civilians knew existed. But the military couldn't say that. They couldn't risk blowing years of development and billions in funding, and certainly couldn't tip the Soviets to what they'd built. So, they let another story take root. The easy one about UFOs, and then they fed it, watered it, and helped it grow. A Pentagon official would later call the spread of alien rumors a form of camouflage. And Pentagon spokeswoman Sue Go confirmed it. AARO found multiple fabricated narratives, engineered to pull attention away from classified work. And those fake photos the colonel slid across a bar weren't a one-off. They were a strategy and part of a sustained campaign. And when you look at the timeline closer, you see that it all does start to make a lot of sense. After all, just ask yourself, is it more likely all the UFO sightings are actually aliens? Crafts from another planet that we see all too often, and yet the proof is always just out of reach? Or are we seeing things that are from this world? Top secret crafts that people like to call UFOs, and the government just lets them.
The military and the government wants you to believe that there's nothing to this topic. They really couldn't, at the end of the day, explain some of these more important cases. I believe the documentation proves beyond any shadow of a doubt that there is a cover-up going on.
AARO sifted through Project Blue Book, the Air Force's official UFO program from 1952 to 1969, and the graphs light up at very specific windows. A huge spike of sightings from 52 to 57, another bump around 1960. The Pentagon's assessment? Well, those surges track perfectly with bursts of testing. Thousands of flights, experimental airframes, rocket launches. The moment American aerospace took big swings. A time we were working to get to the moon. That technology doesn't just get developed in a lab, it needs to be tested in the real world. So people saw things in the sky that shouldn't have been there, and with no public explanation, they reached for the only label that fit: UFO. AARO's report is blunt about it. The witnesses were seeing real objects, they just weren't extraterrestrial. Then in 2014, the CIA declassified a history of the U-2 spy plane program, and another piece clicked into place. When U-2s started cruising above 60,000 feet in the mid-50s, UFO reports exploded. Commercial jets back then lived between 10,000 and 20,000 feet. Most military aircraft topped out at around 40,000. So when something drifted past on radar at twice the altitude of anything else in the sky, well, people freaked out. It looked impossible. Now here's what was actually happening, and it's almost funny. Early evening, the sun is dropping. An airliner heads west at 20,000 feet. Below the horizon, the world is dimming. But at 60,000, well, there's still daylight. A U-2 slips by and its silver wings catch the sun, flaring like a glowing blade. And from a pilot's darkened cockpit below, it looks like science fiction. Air Force investigators knew exactly what was driving the calls. They'd ring CIA staff in DC and cross-check sightings against U-2 flight logs, knocking out most reports in minutes. But here's the kicker. They couldn't tell anyone. I mean, these were literally spy planes. The U-2 program was top secret. So the public got weather balloons, atmospheric optics, anything but, yeah, that was our spy plane. According to those declassified CIA files, U-2 and Oxcart missions accounted for more than half of all UFO reports in the late 1950s and much of the 1960s. And the government had the logs, the timestamps, the matches. Nearly every major sighting tracked to a classified aircraft right overhead. And they said absolutely nothing. But it gets even weirder. AARO uncovered what Sean Kirkpatrick called a bizarre ritual that's been circulating inside the military for decades. The insider's nickname was Yankee Blue. At least a dozen people, and likely more, got pulled into it. Think black program hazing, born in the 1980s and still popping up as late as 2023. Now here's how that script plays out. A new commander rotates into a top-secret Air Force program. They're ushered into a room and shown photographs. Anti-gravity craft, alien tech, the works. And then the whisper. Welcome to Yankee Blue, a classified effort to reverse engineer recovering alien technology. And then, of course, the threat. Now speak of this and there will be consequences, severe ones. Now most never realize it was all theater. They truly believe they'd just been briefed into one of the deepest secrets the government holds. Now, some carried that belief for years, maybe decades, building entire careers around a secret they could never discuss. Now imagine the afterlife of that lie. One of those commanders retires, civilian life, a quiet night and a trusted friend and a couple of drinks. They don't reveal specifics, the conditioning runs too deep, but they confirm the shape of the secret. Yes, there are programs. Yes, the government has things it doesn't share. Yes, it's real. That friend then tells someone else. A blog post appears, maybe an interview, maybe even testimony on the Hill. The story spreads. Meanwhile, the entire foundation rests on an elaborate prank no one ever told them was a prank. We've all seen, listened, or read stuff like this. I want to believe in Bob Lazar as much as the next person, and I think Bob believes in what he says. But have you ever wondered, if he had all this top secret information, why he would be allowed to talk about it in the way he has? Maybe it's exactly because of this. After Arrow flagged this, the Pentagon finally banned the practice, but the damage was done. How many conspiracy threads trace back to someone who endured Yankee Blue? How many researchers leaned on sources who were sincere and sincerely misled as part of their initiation into a classified world? It's almost genius in how twisted it is. Invent a fake secret, make good people believe it, then weaponize their sincerity. While the practice has been officially banned, there's always a workaround, of course. And now, maybe instead of implanting a few people at a time with strange ideas, they're doing it en masse.
Tonight, an aerial mystery that's been described as unnerving is growing. The FBI now investigating multiple reports of unidentified drones flying over New Jersey, some as large as a small car. And today, a large drone...
Remember a year ago? Those drone-looking crafts that popped up all over New Jersey and were freaking everybody out. Well, what happened to that? What was it? They were in the news cycle for 6 weeks straight, and then just disappeared, and we haven't talked about them since. We got no official explanation, and so the public has been left to decide what they think it is. Sound familiar? All this deception didn't come about because there was no reason for it. The Cold War created an environment where secrecy was considered essential for national survival. The United States and Soviet Union were locked in an arms race with potentially civilization-ending stakes. Any technology advantage had to be protected at all costs, so deception wasn't considered dirty pool, it was considered good strategy. American defense planners knew the Soviets were trying to understand American technology advances. Traditional espionage was one threat, but there was another concern. Soviet operatives using Americans themselves as unwitting intelligence assets. If locals near test sites started talking about strange aircraft and those stories spread, eventually they'd reach Soviet handlers. So the more fantastic the stories became, the less reliable they'd seem. But embedded in those stories would be kernels of truth about flight characteristics, appearance, and capabilities. So the military made a calculation. If people were going to see things they couldn't explain, better to steer those explanations toward the impossible. A story about alien spacecraft is far less useful to foreign intelligence than accurate observations about a stealth fighter's flight profile. Kirkpatrick put it this way in an interview with the Wall Street Journal. These episodes reveal how secrecy and misinformation, even when well-intentioned, can spiral into myth. He noted that many popular conspiracy theories could be traced to actual efforts by the US military to conceal vulnerabilities or capabilities during tense periods of geopolitical rivalry. But calling it well-intentioned is a bit generous. The military created and perpetuated a mythology that has had profound cultural impact. The UFO phenomenon in America has shaped movies, television, literature, and the way millions of people think about humanity's place in the universe. It spawned an entire subculture of researchers, believers, and skeptics. It's influenced public trust in government institutions. And all of that grew, at least in part, from deliberate lies. At this point, we still don't know the full scope of the disinformation programs. The 2024 Arrow report, the one that revealed the fake photos in Yankee blue and the calculated use of UFO myths as camouflage, well, that report had significant redactions. Specific pranks, altered documents, and entire episodes of fabricated evidence were kept classified. In other words, they got to look at the information, but the public can't. The Pentagon has promised a follow-up report expected in late 2025 that will include more details about the disinformation programs. But will that report be comprehensive, and will it be honest? After decades of calculated deception, I wouldn't expect it. And truly at this point, even if that paper did come out, would you believe everything in it? Between May of 2023 and May of 2024, Arrow received 757 new incident reports of unidentified aerial phenomena. That's a sharp increase from prior years. Investigators determined that most sightings had ordinary explanations: drones, birds, weather balloons, or satellite reflectors, but not all of them. The current Arrow director, John Kozlowski, has been more candid than his predecessor about the limits of their understanding.
Unidentified objects in any domain pose potential threats to U.S. safety and security. Reports of UAP activity, particularly near national security sites, must be treated seriously and investigated with scientific rigor by the U.S. government.
In November of 2024, he stated that Arrow is analyzing several true anomalies. He said there are interesting cases that, with his physics and engineering background and time in the intelligence community, he doesn't understand. And he doesn't know anybody else who understands them either. 21 incidents, according to Kozlowski, remain unexplained. Are they actual UFOs or more tech the government's still keeping under wraps? Well, we don't know, and most likely, we never will. And that's the bill coming due for the Pentagon's long game of using UFO mythology as a cover story. It wasn't free, it cost trust. Because once you break trust, it doesn't just heal. For decades, anyone who reported something unusual got written off. Kooks, attention seekers, and people who believe in little green men. Now, some of them were describing real American technology. They saw what they saw, but the government couldn't acknowledge what was up there. So they built a world where seeing something strange automatically discredited you. But Congress is trying to unwind that damage, encouraging reports without the stigma. There's a caucus now digging into what they call unidentified anomalous phenomena. Lawmakers want to know which agencies ran crash retrieval efforts, and whether those crashes involve foreign tech, American prototypes, or something else entirely. But here's the deeper cut. How much of today's disclosure push is still shaped by the disinformation the Pentagon planted in the first place? When whistleblowers swear they were read into programs studying alien craft, well, how many are reporting stories born from fake initiations like Yankee Blue? So yes, the mythology around Area 51 was in part engineered by the very people hiding the truth, and yet we've still got those 21 cases Arrow couldn't explain, and many more on top of that, ones that never even got reported. The truth is out there, maybe. But first, they have to keep digging through decades of officially sanctioned garbage to even get near it. And only then, we can hope they'll share it. This is the legacy of the Pentagon's UFO era, where the biggest conspiracy was the one hiding in plain sight all along, and the only aliens we kept chasing were the lies we believed along the way. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of Every 10. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you like this type of work we do and you want more, check out some more episodes and subscribe. If you want to support us, go check out our exclusive Vault episodes over on patreon.com/scarymysteries. No need to become a member, just check out the episodes over there and choose the ones you want to watch. I appreciate you all very much, so thanks for tuning in. Remember to come back next week for another episode filled with scary, strange, and mysterious stories, because you never know. Maybe your town will be next.